Let's dive into the central nervous system, CNS, focusing on its two main components, the brain and the spinal cord. These are the control centers of the nervous system, responsible for processing information, making decisions, and coordinating the body's activities. 1. The central nervous system, CNS. An overview definition: the CNS is the command center of the nervous system, consisting of the brain and spinal cord. Role: it integrates sensory information, coordinates conscious and unconscious activity, and initiates motor responses. Protection: the CNS is well protected by bony structures, skull and vertebrae, meninges, protective membranes, and cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. Composition: primarily composed of nervous tissue, neurons, the functional units of the nervous system that transmit electrical signals. Neuroglia, glial cells, support, protect, and nourish neurons. 2. The brain, the command center. The brain is the most complex organ in the human body, responsible for a vast range of functions, including thought, emotion, memory, and movement. It's divided into several major regions. Cerebrum, largest part of the brain, divided into two hemispheres, left and right, each with 4 lobes. Cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the cerebrum, composed of gray matter, neuron cell bodies, responsible for higher-level cognitive functions. Lobes of the cerebrum, frontal lobe, higher-level cognitive functions, reasoning, planning, decision-making, personality, voluntary motor control, premotor cortex, primary motor cortex. Parietal lobe, sensory processing, touch, temperature, pain, spatial awareness, language interpretation. Temporal lobe, auditory processing, memory, language understanding, Wernicke's area. Occipital lobe, visual processing. White matter, located below the cortex, composed of myelinated axons, responsible for transmitting signals between different areas of the brain. Basal nuclei, basal ganglia, clusters of gray matter deep within the cerebrum, involved in the regulation of movement, procedural learning, and habit formation. Diencephalon, located between the cerebrum and the brainstem. Thalamus, relay station for sensory information, filters and directs sensory signals to the appropriate areas of the cortex. Hypothalamus, regulates homeostasis, including body temperature, thirst, hunger, sleep-wake cycle, and hormone release. Epithalamus, includes the pineal gland, regulates circadian rhythms via melatonin, and the habenula, involved in aversion and reward. Brainstem, connects the brain to the spinal cord. Midbrain, involved in visual and auditory reflexes, motor control, and pain perception. Pons, relay center for information between the cerebrum and cerebellum, regulates sleep and breathing. Medulla oblongata, controls vital functions, such as heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, vomiting, and swallowing. Cerebellum, located at the back of the brain. Coordinates and refines movements, maintains balance, and regulates posture. Does not initiate movement but ensures movements are smooth, precise, and coordinated. Involved in motor learning and timing of movements. Limbic system, not a distinct anatomical region, but rather a collection of structures. Involved in emotion, motivation, memory, and learning. Key components: amygdala, emotion, especially fear; hippocampus, memory; hypothalamus, cingulate gyrus, olfactory structures. 3. The spinal cord, the information highway structure, long, cylindrical structure extending from the medulla oblongata down through the vertebral column. Function: transmits signals between the brain and the rest of the body. Mediates spinal reflexes, rapid, involuntary responses. Protection: protected by the vertebrae of the spinal column, meninges, and CSF. Internal structure: gray matter, inner core, shaped like a butterfly or H, contains neuron cell bodies, dendrites, and unmyelinated axons, involved in integration and processing. Dorsal, posterior, horns, receive sensory information. Ventral, anterior, horns, contain motor neuron cell bodies. White matter, surrounds the gray matter, composed of myelinated axons, forms ascending, sensory, and descending, motor, tracts. Ascending tracts, sensory, carry sensory information from the body to the brain. Descending tracts, motor, carry motor commands from the brain to the body. Spinal nerves, 31 pairs of spinal nerves that emerge from the spinal cord. Each spinal nerve has a dorsal, sensory, root and a ventral, motor, root. Spinal nerves are part of the peripheral nervous system, PNs. 4. Meninges and cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. Meninges, 3 layers of protective membranes that surround the brain and spinal cord. Dura mater, outer, tough layer. Arachnoid mater, middle, web-like layer. Pia mater, inner, delicate layer that adheres to the surface of the brain and spinal cord. Cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. Clear fluid that circulates in the subarachnoid space, between the arachnoid and pia mater, and within the ventricles of the brain. Functions: provides cushioning and protection for the brain and spinal cord. Transports nutrients and removes waste products. Maintains a stable chemical environment. 5. Key functions of the CNS. Sensory input. The CNS receives sensory information from the body through the spinal cord and cranial nerves. Integration. The brain processes and interprets the sensory information. Motor output. The CNS initiates and controls voluntary and involuntary movements. Higher functions. The brain is responsible for consciousness, thought, emotion, memory, learning, language, and personality. Reflexes. The spinal cord and brainstem mediate rapid, involuntary responses to stimuli. In summary, the central nervous system, CNS, comprised of the brain and spinal cord, is the body's central control and integration hub. The brain, with its complex structures and functions, is responsible for higher cognitive processes, while the spinal cord serves as a vital communication link between the brain and the rest of the body. The meninges and cerebrospinal fluid protect and nourish the delicate neural tissue within the CNS.